So welcome, everyone. I have just started the recording. I want to thank you for joining us, and I also want to thank Megan for this opportunity that we can say a few words, and we at AARP New Hampshire can share some resources with you. My name is Mary, and I am a volunteer with AARP New Hampshire. At AARP New Hampshire, we are focused on the health, the financial security, and social connections that are critical to the well-being of the 50-plus in the Granite State. We carry out our work through targeted advocacy at the state and federal levels, compelling engagements for the 50-plus community statewide, and serving as a trusted resource for information to our members and the public. I'm glad that you can join us at this virtual gathering, whether you're a new caregiver or you're an experienced caregiver. Many of us who are not now caregivers will become one because of life's unexpected events. We want to be sure that you are aware that we do have many resources available at AARP for caregivers to provide some helpful information, articles, stories, and virtual offerings to connect with others. We have a helpful guide called Prepare to Care, and all other that and other resources are at the https www.aarp.org/caregiving. It is very important that we as caregivers also take time for ourselves, and we are glad that you're joining us tonight and allowing yourself to take a break and enjoy a fun activity. We're here to support you, and we do hope that you enjoy tonight's painting class. I have started the recording, and this recording will be available on the AARP New Hampshire YouTube channel at www.youtube.com/@AARPNH1. I have also put that link in the chat, and I know you get busy with the painting class, so periodically I will be posting it. The recording will be available in 2 to 3 days tops. We hope to have it on the YouTube channel by Friday. So just to let you know. And for those of you who are interested in the paint class, our next paint class will be February 12th at 6 p.m. And you can register for it now at www.aarp.org/nh. Again, thank you for joining us. And Megan, the class is yours.
All right. Thank you, Miss Mary. I have to echo, if you haven't subscribed to their YouTube channel, it's a great way to get notifications of when their events are posted, so you can go back and check on them. I am subscribed to it because I love seeing all the updates come through, and it's not too many, don't worry. And then you can go and you can like the video and you can leave comments just to show them your love and appreciation. So Mary has posted a bunch of links into the chat window, along with all the caregiving resources, which are really good. And yeah, so we'll go ahead and jump in. For anyone that's new, my name is Megan Van Wart, and I own Paint and Sip VT, but I absolutely love being here and working with AARP New Hampshire for these art classes. Would not be here without the support of AARP New Hampshire. So thank you, Mary and team, for having me. So these classes are really about you and giving you a break to breathe. Maybe you had a really busy day. I may have had a really busy day. So this is an opportunity for you just to stop, pause and slow down and unwind. One of the things about art, if you haven't done it in a while, or if you do it every once in a while, you get really familiar with the things that you like to paint and the things that you don't. But more importantly, you become more familiar with your style. And what you start to pay attention to what makes you feel really good when you paint. So maybe some of you are here to create with us tonight because you know you can kind of turn that busy part of your brain off. So I'm going to be here to coach you along the way to get in that cool zone for you just to be here to enjoy each step for what it is and to be yourself and have some fun with these colors. So before we begin, joining our classes, you can join with any paint supplies that you have. So I'm using acrylic paints. Sometimes we do watercolors. Most of the time we do acrylic paints, but use whatever supplies you have at home. You can paint on canvas boards. You can paint on canvas paper, whatever you have. You can paint on wood. Again, you're here just to enjoy the activity. I also have a printed version of our inspiration here. So lots of beautiful colors. Since we're using acrylic paints tonight, I'm starting with some of the primaries, red, blue, and yellow. Colored pencils, awesome. Someone's using colored pencils tonight. I love that. So red, blue, and yellow, and black and white. If you happen to have a paint set that you have lots of colors, use those greens, use those purples, use those pinks. But if you don't have them, you can easily mix colors and blend. So in these classes, I'll always teach you how to mix and blend colors on your own. So join me in getting the supplies ready for tonight's class. In addition to something painting on in your paints itself, or whatever your medium is, I just grab an array of brushes. I kind of have large to small brushes. Some of the larger brushes are for the larger coverage areas. And then I have detailed brushes for like some of the pine trees and some of the like landscape like detail. You'll need a cup of water for washing off your brushes, and you'll need a small plate to mix your colors on. Okay, so we'll go ahead and jump in and get started in just a moment. All right, so the first thing that we're going to do is I want to talk a little bit about the design of this landscape. And there's major focal areas in the background that we're going to be working on first. And then we'll be working our way to the foreground. So we'll be doing some of the mountain details in the distance, kind of making a line for our landscape. And then we'll be doing some of these different colors, and we'll be building upon it. So I will be walking you through on how to mix and blend all these different colors, but there's light blues and there's medium tone blues, and then there's some darker blues. So I'll be coaching you through maybe what brushes I'm using, and we'll jump in and get going now. All right. And if there's questions in the chat, I'll be my best to answer them. If folks are trying with watercolors, you always want to start with the lighter colors when you're doing watercolors. So if anybody's doing watercolors tonight, start with the lighter colors. So start with the lighter blue in the sky, and start with the moon above the crest of the mountains, etc. And then you can use darker colors as you go with watercolors. All right, so let's go ahead and jump right in. We're gonna have some fun with this one. The composition is beautiful and there's a lot of detail, but we're gonna have fun with it. So the first brush I'm gonna use is kind of a medium-sized brush. I'm gonna be using a light blue color or even a medium blue color just to get the landscape line in, so kind of structure our canvas. So I'm gonna be mixing either a blue or a light blue of choice, it doesn't matter. And for a plate tonight, I'm using, it's called palette paper. It's kind of like a wax paper. It's kind of like a sheet based. It's kind of nice, so I can mix colors right on here, and then I can just tear off the sheet when I'm done. But I'm mixing a blue or a light blue, maybe a medium tone. So I'm just doing a small dollop of blue and then a little bit of white on my plate. And I'll show you my color as I mix this. All right, so the brush number I'm using, this is a number 5 round tip brush. And I'm just gonna take a little bit of white. And this brush size doesn't really matter because we're just putting in some of the core kind of foundational elements for a picture. And we'll be building upon it. So these are kind of lines to sketch the composition. And whatever color you use here is gonna be fine. I like to spin my brush in the paint to have a little bit of, I call it paint management. It's a very technical term I use. All right. And what I'm going to do with a little bit of this blue on this brush is I'm going to find where I want my horizon line to be. On top of this horizon line, I'm going to do mountains. So I'm going to do about 1/3, and it's going to be easy as this. Just do a line across. It can be, mine's a little wobbly. Doesn't matter. This is going to be just a horizon line. I'm going to paint mountains on top of this. And maybe with a little bit of like, I have a more normal tone blue. If you want to have fun and just do a little bit of a mountain ridge, you can hold your brush a little further back. And I'm just going to do a little bit of a mountain ridge. And your hand can be a little shaky. That makes it look a little more natural. So that's a mountain ridge. And it's short in height because I want a lot of this area here to be focused on that beautiful sky detail. So my mountain ridge is fairly low in height because it's far away. When something is smaller, and this is any kind of blue that you want, when you paint something that is smaller, it usually means it's far away. The bigger an object is, it means it's closer to you from the viewer's perspective. So paint a narrow mountain ridge. I'm not doing anything too crazy tonight. You can have peaks. It could be a rolling hill. And to just fill it in. And we're going to let that dry. And you can't mess this part up, I promise. So the top 2/3 are going to be the sky and the mountains, and the bottom third is going to be our lake or our pond, whatever you want it to be. And we'll be doing trees as one of our last steps. So I'm just having fun, just filling these mountains in. I can always change these mountains. They don't have to be, you know, dialed in and perfect. We don't usually strive for perfection in these classes. We just have a good time. But in this class, I encourage you to kind of let go of your expectations. I want you to embrace the fact that anything can happen with your artwork tonight. Okay. That's when the real magic happens, when you can just kind of let go and be a part of the process. I'm doing long, skinny brush strokes just to have a nice smooth coat of blue for these mountains. That's all I'm doing. Nice, smooth, nice and relaxed. So these are just mountains in the distance. Again, I can add some more prominent peaks using just the tip of this brush if I want to add a little bit more of a prominent peak, I can. You could grab a smaller brush if you want. Again, I'm just being playful as folks are painting in this mountain range. And then we're really just going to let this dry. And we're going to move our way up. So there's a lot of different ways. If anybody's type A, or if you're thinking about operationally how you could go about painting something like this, I want you to know that there's a lot of different ways you can paint tonight's inspiration. We're going to do each color layer for what it is. So we're actually going to switch, and we're going to do our yellows and oranges, and we're going to build up the whole sky to our blues as we go. So we're going to let the mountain range dry. One of the things we can do as our mountain range is drying is come in here and paint in a little bit of a peninsula, a little bit of a rock peninsula. And you can leave, maybe you put in, this is another little bit of a rock peninsula coming in. So there's going to be water that goes behind this peninsula. Maybe one's a little shorter. They kind of have a flat bottom. So these are rocks. And the ends are a little more pointy. And I'm just using blue because blue is kind of an accent color. We'll be painting these darker. But since we have our blue here, we can get this process started. And I'm going to bring these rocks just about halfway. There we go. And they kind of come straight across. So those are rocks that are coming in. This is land that's coming into this area. And I'm not going to fill them in, but I'm just going to outline them since I have the blue here. And if I wanted to add another rock kind of coming down in the foreground, and then another rock kind of coming up, you can see how our imagination, this is all going to be water in here. So everybody's going to look a little different. If you want to add in a little bit more rock or land, you can, but this blue is just going to kind of hold space for us. So I'm using my imagination. This is going to be a huge, beautiful night sky. And then all these little areas here, this is all land. And then this whole area here is going to be all water. Now the inspiration has like a little bit more of a land mass, just a little one kind of coming in over here. If I wanted to add that in, again, kind of a flat bottom. It's up to you. You can add in as much or as little as you wish. Again, straight bottoms. And I'm not going to add any more than that. All right. So you can see I have some nice peninsulas coming in, and I have some nice area for some water. That's going to be really helpful because we're going to let all of the blue dry and we're going to come in with our yellows and do our beautiful bright yellow sunset colors in here. And then we'll do the reflection right on the water, right within this space. So it's good that we have those blue lines in, and these lines don't have to be perfect. Most importantly, we want them to dry. So get those lines in for the land. My trick is to have the lines straight across on the bottom, and you can kind of have them a little more hilly on the top. So you can play with that. So I'm going to clean off my brush. I'm going to give everybody just a minute or two. Again, operation, let all your blue dry. And if you have any thick blue lines, take your brush and kind of just run your brush over any areas that may be wet. If you're using acrylic, your paint should dry pretty quickly. And if you see any thicker areas, just run your brush over it to help it dry. If you're using watercolors, you're just going to need to be a little more careful. If you're using colored pencils, doesn't even matter. You're in good shape. So I'm just going to clean off my brush. And operation, we're going to let this dry for just a moment. Don't forget to stretch your shoulders and your neck back. Take a deep breath and settle into the process. But we're going to give a minute and let our blue mountains and lines dry. Now, everyone in these classes work at different paces. So if you're new to these classes, I want you to know if you want to go really slow and take your time, I encourage you to do that. These classes are recorded for a reason. So if you want to take a little bit extra time, just know I want you to go at your own speed. All right. We're going to have some fun with these yellows. So I'm going to slowly talk us through the next step. So you can see over here in the inspiration, there is like a white moon or sun that's kind of setting. We'll do that after, but we're going to start by mixing a light canary yellow. And I want you to look at the shapes that's happening. So there's a lot of like fiery, beautiful movement in this sky. If you want to include movement, a part of your brush strokes, I encourage you to do that. One thing I want to share about our inspiration is there's a lot of segmented colors, a lot of canary yellow, a lot of orangey yellow, some orange. There's not a ton of blended colors in tonight's inspiration. So sometimes in these classes, we blend one color to another. I'm gonna not do that tonight intentionally. And this is a really great example or a practice of just painting a sky differently, doing a different style. So I'm gonna do this style tonight by doing one like a lighter yellow, and then I'll do a brighter yellow, and then I'll do an orangey yellow intently on top of one another and create that first patch of brightness. That's what I'm going to be doing intently tonight. Now, if you don't want to do that, you're not going to hurt my feelings, I promise. You can blend your colors if you want to, but I think it's going to be really fun to try something different. So it's absolutely up to you. But I'm going to first start out by making a kind of a lighter canary yellow. And I'm grabbing a medium sized brush. This is a medium flat tip brush. It's about 1/4 inch.
Megan,
Yes.
somebody asked if you could move your paper to the left. I'm not sure.
Like this?
I don't know. Let's try that and see if that
Or
works
to
for
the
them.
right?
Well, she said to the left, so I'm not sure.
Yeah, let me see if I can just center it on my screen. Let's see.
Okay.
So my canvas and inspiration are now centered on my screen. So theoretically that should be centered for others. So
Okay.
give us some comments in the chat if that's better. It looks
Yeah.
fine where it is. Okay, cool.
Okay.
So we'll
Thank
roll
you.
with that. No
Thank you.
worries. So I'm going to use yellow. I have a medium yellow here. That's better. Perfect, Nancy. And I'm going to use yellow and white to mix a little bit of a light yellow color. So yellow and white, I want you to mix a lighter yellow. And I'm going to use this smaller size brush. We're using a small brush because I want you to be in control over the brush strokes. I'm going to get my brush a little bit wet. Put a little bit of white paint. Oh, I have a little bit of white. You don't want to use your white if it got any blue mixed with it because blue and yellow make green. And I don't want green in my sky. But I'm going to mix a lighter yellow here. In these classes, always take your time to mix colors that you enjoy. This is a little lemony for me, so I'm just gonna grab a little bit of red or maybe a little bit of ochre. Ochre is kind of a darker yellow. I'm going to just, I'm mixing a light yellow that I like. So if you want to bring a little bit of an orange into this, you can. I'm just changing this light yellow up just a little bit. And always take your time to mix a color you like. You don't need a lot of this. You want enough for this, a little bit in the sky, and then we're going to put a little bit in the water down below. There, that's better. And I always try to keep the paint all together. If you spread that paint out on your plate, you're going to lose some of it. Okay. So you're not going to use a lot of this. What you're going to do is I'm going to do a little bit of an angle, and I'm going to create a little bit of a patchy movement, just kind of coming up. And I'm just going to be myself and have fun. And I'm just going to put this right in the middle above the mountains. This is my first patch of sunset. And if it's a sunrise for you, that's fine. I'm going to come right on top of the mountains here. And I'm just going to do little patches. And you can do a little bit of a tail here or there. I'm just having fun. I'm not going to overthink it. You can, if you want to use a smaller brush to, move it around in different ways. So if I grab a little bit of a smaller brush and I want to bring it up a little higher, maybe over a little bit more. Again, I'm bringing in another orangey yellow in a minute, and I'm not going to blend it into this. Okay. So I'm just having fun. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to take this same color and I'm going to create a little path in the water here. So right underneath the mountains, right underneath this area, I'm going to put a little bit of I'm going to call it a sun path. I have a lot of fun technical terms in these classes. Okay. I'm going to create a little bit of a sun path kind of coming out. It's going to be more narrow in the back. It's going to come around this peninsula. This is the light hitting the water. Ooh, look at that. Reflecting on the water. And it's going to, for me, it's going to kind of kick around in this a little bit. And if you happen to paint over your blue land a little bit, that's no big deal. And for me, it's just going to come over here a little bit. And I'm just going to kind of center it off in the bottom, but because I'm going to put more watercolors around that. So if you use your imagination, this is the sun that's coming up over the mountains. It's starting the sunset, but it's reflecting down on the water. You can kind of do long, kind of sloshy brush strokes. I'm doing all solid colors here. So I'm just having fun. I'm not going to overthink it. It's a sunset. Yes, it is a sunset. I like it. All right. So I'm not going to do any more than that because I can always add more if I want to. But for me, it kind of went around that peninsula a little bit. So again, it's a sunset coming up. And this is the yellow reflection on the water. Okay. So now we're going to move to the next yellowy orange color. So we all have a little bit of yellow on our plate. I'm going to grab a little bit of red and mix a little bit of, and make a little bit of an orange. So I'm going to take a little bit of my red. This is where it's really fun mixing colors. I'm going to put the red away from the yellow so I can grab a little bit at a time. Okay, that's the trick. So we're creating like a next shade that we're going to use, and this is orangey. So here's a little bit of my red. I'm going to take a tiny corner of red. You can dab some off. And I'm done with this yellow. I'm going to mix a little bit of red in this to make it just have a little bit of an orange tinge. And that's going to be my next shade. Okay. So you want it to look like a little different. You don't want it to be like drastically different. So I'm going to you can see the color different a little bit. I'm going to add a little bit more. I want you to use your eye for what you want the next shade to be. See how the color is changing on my palette? Really fun to see it happen. And you can make as much of this orange area compared to the night sky as you wish. So I have a little bit of an orangey color, that's fine. I'm gonna slowly start to create a little bit of movement, and I'm gonna make the next layer of brilliant in my sky. Now, if you wanna kind of come on top of the yellow a little bit, you can. I'm gonna be intentional to try not to blend it, because again, I was trying to do something different in class. And if you know me, I try to do things differently every once in a while. Doesn't always happen, but. All right, so I'm just adding in a little bit of this orange. And yes, it can come over here to the left a little bit. We may tuck in a little bit of that other color again. I have a little bit of a whoosh of wind kind of coming in here. So if you do want to create any blending, you can. I'm just going to come and just bring it around about an inch here or there. Okay. And if you want to go back and grab, a little bit of this other yellow and kind of tuck some of that in, you can. We'll do something really fun in just a minute. So play with this color as you wish, but you're slowly going to add in a little bit of darker orange too. So I'm going to make another version. I'm going to mix a little bit of a darker orange by bringing in a little bit more red. I'm not going to go too big with this orangey area, but I'm just going to have some fun. So maybe I come up a little bit. All right. So have a little fun here. You can do as much or as little as you want. Maybe this darker orange is just a little bit of an accent for me. And lean back in your chair, and I want you to kind of feel and experience this. So whenever you're ready, you're going to end this like fiery part of your sunset with just like a little bit of red. Maybe it's flaring up a little bit. If it looks like fire, just you can kind of add in some like additional colors. That's fine. If it looks fiery to you. I'm adding just some fun red, so you can take as much or as little time as you wish here. We're going to have lots of blues from like the night sky around this. This is just a beautiful, just some bands of color. I'm going to put some reds over here above the top of these mountains. So I'm keeping this I'm trying to keep this below halfway. I'm getting a little crazy here, but that's okay. I'm putting a little red over here. Try to keep this halfway. If you're going up above halfway, slow down a little bit. If you want to put a little bit of orange on top of the red, that's fine. Again, I'm just having fun with color. Trying not to be too hard on myself. I'm just having a good time. If you wanted to add in a little purple here, you could take a little bit of blue and red, and you can bring in like a darker like red purple color. Absolutely up to you. If you want to use a different brush, you can. You could make your red a little darker. I'm not going to add too much red. I want to keep it with the oranges. And if you paint something you don't like, just let it dry. Try not to like smudge on top of it. So I'm just going to pause and let mine dry. It's really going to come together as we get going with the swirl in the sky, and I'll teach you how to do that in just a minute. But I'm just going to stop because I'm getting a little high, and I'm just going to stop and let it dry, and then I'm going to clean off my brushes. And then we'll use a little bit of a light yellow to kind of create a little bit of this swirl. Okay, that will be a really fun step for us next. That swirl is that magic that's like happening from a sunset to swirling into a night sky. It's going to be really neat. And we'll do that with just a few delicate brush strokes. So if this area looks messy to you and colors are starting to blend together or maybe looking mucky, the best thing to do is to let it dry, and then you can come back to it. Always let things dry. If you ever feel like even if it may not be done, just let it dry and come back to it, because you can always put more solid colors on top of it. Trust me. Okay. So I'm going to show you how to start to do a little bit of the shaping in the sky. We can use light blue. We'll use a little bit of the lighter yellow on top after, but just grab a small round tip brush of choice. And again, if you're not done this like bright part, don't worry. Mine may not even be done, but it's good to kind of pause and take a break sometimes. With our classes, we typically will do one area, let it dry, go do another, and then we come back to an area so you can really refine the layers. We do different layering in our class based on the timing and the details of our artwork. So mine, again, is pretty big compared to the inspiration, but it's okay because I like the colors. So it's all right. So I have a number 5 round tip brush, a number 3, 4, or 5 round tip brushes are absolutely fine. And I'm going to have you mix a light blue. And if you see where I'm going, we're going to create some of this beautiful, I'm going to call it fire-like shaping, or sparks, whatever, however you want to describe it, creating a light blue color here on my plate. And we're going to do very delicate brush strokes to create the shape and the movement of our sky. This is like that galactic swirl. It's going to be really fun. But we're going to do it with intent. And this light blue is going to help us with that shaping. So when you have that light blue color, I like to spin it on my plate to manage how much paint is on it. If you wanted to dip your brush in a little bit of water, I'll show you. So this is paint on the brush. If you want to dip it in a little bit of water, wipe off the edge so it's not dripping. And you can kind of like swirl it around on your plate a little bit. You'll see how that just loosens everything up. That's okay. Adding a little bit of water, it's still going to help us with that shape and that movement and swirl. Okay. So we're not doing like swirly cues here. But what I want you to do is find the middle, kind of right above your fire area. And I want you to think about what you want your shape to be. So for me, I'm going to kind of do a backwards S a little bit. And I'm just going to kind of create a little bit of a curl. So I'm just doing some little bits of fiery pieces, kind of curling out. And it's going to have a little bit of a curl here. And you can also do this light blue kind of coming down. Maybe some clouds kind of coming over here. So I'm using this to create a little bit of a shape. Maybe there's a bigger one coming in here. We're going to use our darker colors to add this. So anywhere you want to create, imagine you're creating some of that inner color. Kind of build off from one of your lines. So this is just light blue. I'm kind of building off. And if you want to use a smaller brush, you can, but I'm just having fun. I'm building off of these lines, putting a little bit of water on my brush to help, using a really light hand, and I'm kind of just following it around. See the shaping that I've created? And you're just bringing this to life a little bit with just, you're thickening these lines you've started with. So in the sky here, we'll be going from our lighter blues to our darker blues. And yes, we'll be tucking in this lighter blue right down here next to our orange. Just make sure it's, or our yellows and oranges, just make sure it's a little dry. And if you wanted to put it on top of it a little bit, you can. See how I just tucked a little bit of that orange or a little bit of the light blue right next to the orange. Have fun with it. See, it's tucked right in there. We're going to be using other blues too, but we're just starting with these lighter colors. Maybe over here on the left, you have just some kind of like long, skinny, light blue, like cloud-like shapes. I'm just creating movement by lines, different lines in the sky. So use your imagination. Lean back in your chair and play with this kind of vortex. Use thin lines. Try dipping your brush in a little bit of water. Create a little bit of texture using the tip of your brush. This is a little bit abstract. You kind of have to like loosen up a little bit for this step. I know you can do it. You want to leave gaps in between these blue lines because we're going to be putting additional blue in there. So let's see, I'm going to bring some of this light blue over here and leaving gaps. So the light blue is going to be the lightest part in the sky, and it's going to be so beautiful. But you can see I'm creating movement. I created that swirl. Over here, you can add more light blue if you want, but I'm going to be adding some more darker blues intently. Wherever there's white, I'm going to be going up a grade with regards to color. So make sure you kind of fill in, and you can start thin with these light blue, and because you can always add in more if you want. So I'm creating kind of a fun vortex for the sky. And I'm just filling these in just a little bit, so it's not just a line. Just kind of looking around, making sure I don't see any white coming through the light blue, or maybe I'm just doing a quick second coat of anything that I've already started. And I can always add more light blue if I want. So use your imagination. Take a deep breath and enjoy. This is a really fun, creative process. All right. All right. And I'm just adding a little bit of coverage for this light blue before I go to my next blue color. Who can think of what blue color we're going to use next? It's just going to be a touch darker. So to show you my palette, I have this light blue, and then I'm going to go to this color blue next. This is kind of white and blue mixed together. Who can guess what we're doing? This blue is going to go, the next blue is going to kind of go in between. So start in the middle area. Use the tip of your brush, downgrade to a smaller brush if you need to. And you're going to kind of paint around the light blue. Now you want it to be different enough in color. So I'm just starting in the middle. Again, I'm doing a different texture where I'm not blending these colors. I'm kind of going around one to another. All right. And you can see how beautiful this is going to be. I'm just slowly painting and dancing around those blue lines. So this is where if you need to add more blue lines, lighter ones after, you can. But I'm creating segments of blue just like I did with my orange. See that? It's quite fun. So I'm just starting on kind of the interior, and we are going to get darker as we are on the exterior here. So I'm kind of starting on the interior of the sky. And again, if you do want to do a totally different technique than I'm doing tonight, that's fine. You're not going to offend me, I promise. But I'm just going to stay on the interior, and I'll slowly work my way to the outside. Maybe I'll do a little bit of this blue on the outside. Again, have fun with it. I'm just dancing colors around all those first initial shapes. I'm using a 5 round tip. I'm being very delicate with my brush strokes. You could easily downgrade to a smaller brush. So kind of check yourself if you want to use a smaller brush. I'm being very careful of using just the tip of this brush. So I have a small controlled brush stroke, but you can see how the lighter blue and then this medium blue are dancing together. Really quite fun. Really being playful and open-minded. And this is a new technique we're doing for these classes. We do something different every month. So just know that, you know, you can always do your own thing, but if you want to try and do different things with us, we always love having you. And these classes are all designed for folks who haven't painted, or very easy. So just know that I always keep that in mind as we make our art selections for our inspirations each month. So I'm doing great with this medium blue. I'm going to add a little bit more, and then I'm going to upgrade to a darker color, AKA just another color blue. Maybe it's more of a royal blue. We'll see here. So I want you to go at your own speed, follow your own intuition, follow your own shapes. I might add a little bit more of this lighter blue just around this medium blue around some of this up here. Again, dipping your brush in a little bit of water can help. So just take a couple deep breaths and enjoy the process. And again, I'm not blending one color to another. I'm just kind of rolling with it. I'm doing one segment at a time. So now I'm going to go to a little bit darker of a blue. I'll show you my palette so you can see it. So I have a light blue, a medium blue, and then the blue that I'm using by default is kind of like a cobalt blue. I'm just going to try using that next as like my third color. But you're going to need a little bit of black. You can make a darker blue with a little bit of black, and we'll do that after. But this is where I just want you to fill your night sky. Don't be rushed. If this isn't dark enough for me, guess what? I'm going to come in and make it a little darker with a dark blue, but I'm just going to continue to fill in this night sky with this next color. And again, downsize to a smaller brush if you wish. I'm going to do a little bit of this blue, but I'm also going to mix it and make it a little darker in a minute here because you're going to use some black as well for the exterior part. So for me, I want to get a little darker for the night sky more quickly. Mine looks a little big, so I'm gonna do a little bit of this blue, and then I'm just gonna jump in pretty quickly. If you want to tuck this other blue in to little spaces here or there, you can always kind of tuck it in if you want to darken up an area. So for me, I might darken this a little bit here. Again, come in next to some of the fiery oranges. It's all going to be connected. But I'm going to mix a little bit of black and blue to make a navy in just a minute. So again, this is where I'm following my intuition about making it more of a night sky. Start making this blue a little darker if you need to. So I need to do that because that's what my artist intuition is telling me. And I'm just going to start to darken it. And I can bring in this darker navy blue in any way that I wish. You can see it's pretty dark. Play with, you know, how dark or light it is. You can always mix a little bit more blue with a given color if it's a little too dark. You can always add a little hint of like this navy blue in some of these areas to have it match and tie in, add a little bit of, you know, nighttime touch. So I'm just going to bring this in. I'm going to bring it around. And then I'll also bring black in to really make it look dark too. So for me, I want this whole area to be a little darker. So I'm just going to bring this in and make it a little darker here. So anywhere you want to add in a little bit more like evening darkness, you can do that. So really be playful here as an artist on where you want to bring in these colors. I'm just having some fun by filling in this side of the sky because I know that I want it to be darker over here. So you want you to fill your sky in so it's as dark and moody as you want to with your darker blues. If you feel like you need to cover up some of the brightness down here, that's fine. You can. I'll show you how dark I'm going to go on the edges and on the top. So if you really want to start getting into a moody night sky, you can start to bring in a little bit of black, like into the top of the painting. That will really make it moody pretty quickly. I wouldn't go straight black quite yet. I just did to show you, but mixing a little bit of blue with black is a good transition. And you can play with blending those colors. And this is where you do some first coats and then you let it dry. And you can come in and we're going to bring some more of those darker blues in. And we're also going to add some stars on top of all this, so it will all start to match and play together. And if you wanted to blend the sky a little bit, there is a little bit of blending with the blues and the blacks. So I told you I wasn't going to do a ton of blending. If you wanted to do blending on some of those exterior parameters, you can. It's absolutely up to you. But I'm just going to start to dance around some of this red and orange I'm using a blue, bluish black, just to start to make this look like a night sky a little bit more. Maybe I add in a little bit of blue over here. Again, you can play with what colors you want to add where. I may add a little bit of blue to transition to the black area. You can kind of lean back in your chair and make some of those choices as you wish. More so just know that your painting will evolve. Sometimes when you add dark colors, it can get a little scary. Don't worry. This class is all about progress and progression rather. So just take your time and let these layers dry. We'll come in and add more soft layers on top. So some more wispy layers, we'll add that into this. So don't worry if it looks funny. We'll add some more wispy layers on top of the blacks and blues, okay? So this is nighttime, right? Mine got pretty dark on the top, which looks really cool. Just using my blues and my blacks just to fill in the exterior of the sky. And we will add stars after, but fill in the night sky entirely. And then we'll add some of those wispy kind of galactic layers in. So don't worry if yours looks patchy. We'll update some of that after. Now I'm going to come in here intently with some brush strokes. I want to continue to use some of the movement where I can. I may think about where you might want to add a little bit of that blue versus the blacker color. You can see I have some of that color integrated over here. So if I want to add a little bit more blue, I can kind of tuck some of that blue in. I was again playing with the movement of this class, the movement of the sky. And it's always fun to try different styles. And I love demonstrating that in these classes because it can be really scary to try something new, especially without instruction. My mother does not like trying new things. She is an artist and she likes to stay within her little safe bubble, and that's always okay. And in these classes, you can always stay and follow your own style too, but wherever you want to try something new, I'm always going to be here to support you with that. So even for beginners, just always go at your own pace, do what feels right to you. And when you're ready to step out of your comfort zone, you're going to feel when it's right for you. And you can even do that in the class today. This class is meant to be relaxing, so do what feels best for you today. All right, look at this sky. It's really come to life with the black, hasn't it? It's really incredible. I'm going around the mountain here. I'm using the tip of the brush to have a little bit skinnier brush stroke, and you can push down a little harder to have a wider brush stroke. But I have lots of blues going on. And for me, I have to kind of step back, and I have some white spots kind of in my sky and swirl. So I may take a minute just to fill some of that in. But I want everyone to take as much or as little time as you need here just to play with filling in the blues. So you have a nice solid flat of color, whether it's the blue areas or the black colors. And then we'll let that dry before we do a little bit of our galactic wash. We'll jump down and paint some of the land, and that'll be easy. It'll be nice and black colors, black and dark blues. So take a few minutes to fill in your layers where it may need a little more love. So I have some white gaps coming through here. I'm just going to do a little bit of second coats where I may need second coats for some of these blue layers. So I'm going to do my light blue layers first. This is just a little bit of touch-up work before we put all those galactic stars on. And tonight's painting is pretty detailed, so some of you may want to spend more time on tonight's painting. Some of you may, just be kind of rolling with it. That's fine too. So just know if you want to take more time, feel free. But these touch-ups, like especially this light blue, you really can make the light blue kind of pop out in some more areas. You can add some more ridge-like textures. There's so much you can do. So take your time, maybe start with the light blue, come in and smooth out some of these edges of these shapes. Take a couple deep breaths and just really jump in and immerse yourself into this experience. It's really fun and daring to let yourself go just to see what happens. But I have to tell you, there's no risk in you doing that. And it feels really good to do something a little different. In every one of our classes, I'll remind you to just show up authentically and do what feels right. So I'm doing second coats of my light blue here. You can see I'm doing a little bit of this lighter blue. It's coming on top of the black because I'm really creating some fun splash. Like for me, that's just, I'm going with the flow. I am just embracing tonight's inspiration for what it wants to be. Maybe I'll put a little bit of light blue over here by my red. Maybe I'll put a little bit of medium blue over here by my red to kind of help cut the black. It's always a process and it's really fun to see how things come out. Okay. So you can always kind of change up some of your transitional colors. And if it's too fiery, per se in one area, you can kind of change the shape to make it a little bit more smooth. So like you can make it into more of a rounded shape. If it's like a little fiery, that's fine. Okay, so just take your time. And again, so just take your time. Again, I'm just playing with this colors a little bit. What we'll do in our next step is we can take a break and let our sky dry. We can paint our land masses down here a navy blue. So whenever you're ready, if you want to take a break from the top, let it dry. You can make a navy blue, black kind of color. You can come down here and paint your land. This is kind of a good break if you're kind of getting lost a little bit with the top. Come down here and paint your land. Try keeping the peninsula part, the outline blue. Just keep that blue. See if you can paint the interior. A little bit of the black, a little bit of the navy. Let's see here. So I am just filling in the land. And again, I'm intently keeping some of the blue lines to help with the forms. But this is really fun because you can start to see your land come to life. So let's see, I have a little bit of land here. I don't need this big blue line, but I can kind of keep some of it. And I'm using black and a little bit of blue. I need a little bit more blue on my plate. So it's good to kind of transition and take a break from one area. Artists do this all the time. They're like, oh, I'm gonna go make a cup of tea and come back and stare at it from 6 feet away to see what needs to be done. Or they work on a different area and they let it dry. That's exactly what we're doing with the sky right now, is we're just taking a break and we're gonna come back to it and we can continue to make modifications. If you're blending colors, you can blend colors in different areas. We'll be blending a little bit of colors for the land mass, but if you're blending colors, just put a little water on your brush, find a lighter blue and mix it with a medium blue, and you can do it on your plate and mix colors, or you can do it on your canvas. It's just all about which technique you want to try. If you're using acrylic, it dries really quickly. So you could mix the color on your plate first if you wanted to, or you could use a little water on your brush while the paint is wet on your canvas. It's absolutely up to you. So I'm just filling in the land with like a navy blue, dark black color. And it looks very splotchy right now. Don't worry, it's not going to look like that the whole time, but I'm just getting those basic colors in. The land over here on the left will be blue, but the land on the bottom will be like blue and green. So if you wanted to do a little bit of, blue on the edging, I think we'll do a little bit of highlighting and depth work after. Just paint these a solid color right now. It'll be the easiest thing. So I'm doing like a navy blue. I'm still using this number 5 brush, but you can use any brush that you want. So there we go. So I'm just filling in kind of the land down here. You can come in and do like another nice smooth line if you wish. We will be making the edges of this land a little brighter. So they look dark and eerie right now. I promise we'll lighten those up. Sometimes you have to trust the process with art. And I'm going to come in and just paint these two. Bring this down a little bit for you. I'm just going to paint this land mass, and we'll paint the water blue next, but we'll get the land painted. Again, let the land dry. Again, I'm letting my sky dry so I can figure out how I want to make any additional changes. We'll also be adding in a moon and making things brighter as well, but the moon is going to be on top of what we have. And we'll also be adding in some trees. So there's a lot of different details you can add to tonight's class. Again, a big thanks to AARP New Hampshire for having us. We would not be here without their support. And I encourage folks to check out the links in the chat and join us for the next class. It's going to be really fun. All right, so I painted the land. It's all really dark. I'm going to grab a little bit of blue, like a darker blue, and just paint the land over here in the back distance, just to like a little bit of a darker blue color. Let's see here. I think this color will be just fine. You can always change the color of the land if you want. We are going to be adding a little bit of like green touches and a little bit of blue touches to the land, but these are all just basic colors. If there's a question, feel free to type a question into the chat window. We can answer those through there. And I'm just going to bring the black. The top side of the land is going to be a little lighter or a little more blue. So the black land mass can come out a little bit. But we'll be doing more blue accents with the water in just a minute. All right. So what we're going to do is once the land is painted in, so you can see the land now, we're going to paint the water blue. The water can be, it can be a little lighter than these mountains. It can be a little darker. I'll probably go a little darker. So play with mixing paint. But it can be, you want it to still be, fairly blue water. You can kind of pick and choose. I'm just going to put a little bit more blue paint on. And you're going to go right underneath these mountains. And I'm going to paint around the yellow. And I'm using the tip of the brush. And if you want to leave a little bit of a white gap here or there, see what that does. Maybe it adds a little bit of an extra. All right. and leaving a little bit of a gap. You could do that if you wish. So I'm just having fun, just dancing around the land and painting in my water. I'm using just the tip of my brush and I'm just seeing what happens underneath the mountain. You can see how like a little bit of lightness around the land. It's kind of doing something a little magical, like it's the edge of the water. You can play with that. The blue that I'm using is a little bit of the blue with just a little bit of black mixed in. And I'm using this 5 round tip brush. You can use any style brush that you want here. I'm just doing this because I have a little bit more control. At the same time, if not to confuse folks, but if you wanted to bring in like a lighter blue, you could do that after, or you could do it right now. I'm just gonna kind of stick with this blue right now. I want you to use any color you want for the water, by the way. I may use different colored blues. I'm not sure. I think I might get a little bit more blue here as I go. Blue versus grayish blue, because it's kind of dark. But this is where, for me, I am not overthinking what I'm doing. If I paint something and this water is not the right color, guess what? I can come in here and I can lighten this water up. That's not a big deal. So it's better just to kind of take action and just be really playful with your artwork versus over analyzing what exact color to use. And it's kind of liberating once you allow yourself just to kind of get there. But I want you to fill your water in around your yellow reflection. I'm using a little bit more blue now. And if this class is, for beginner friendly, just use one color blue down here and have your water stand out in any way that you wish. You could use a little bit of water on your brush to kind of make it blend a little bit more into the background or add a little bit of opacity. If you're a level 2 and you want to use different colored blues, lights and darks, or even more light blues, you can do that. And I'll show you how to add a little bit of light blue after, but this is just a nice base coat for the water. So for me, this is not finished, this color. This is just one of the base coats. And again, with acrylic, things dry really quickly. So I want to cover as much white as I want to here. I'm using regular blue now and just kind of painting this in because I want it to be a little brighter, not so dark. But play with your colors. Try adding in a little bit of lighter blue. I'll add lighter blue in just a minute. But I'm just adding in this nice, if you want to kind of bring the color on top of the yellow a little bit, I'm using a really light hand and just kind of getting right close to the yellow, kind of wisping my brush left, right, left, right. So you can see here that my mountains are there. And if your mountains are starting to blend in to your water, that's okay. You can always make your mountains a little darker or lighter. It's totally up to you. I'm just having fun with getting this watercolor in first, and then I'll make my water a little lighter. I'll add some movement to my water, etc. And we'll highlight the land in a different way. So this is all just a process, but just fill your water in at this step. No big deal. I'm just making sure I don't have a lot of white going on. I just really want to make sure that my water is filled in entirely, which it is. And if anybody wants to be playful, you could take a little bit of white and blue and make a little bit of a light blue. And you could do a little bit of light blue on the edges of the yellow. So I'm kind of going back and forth, and I'm creating a little bit I'm softening the edge of the yellow with a little bit of light blue. So this is a really fun, easy tip. Even if you're a beginner, you can totally do this. A little bit of water on my brush. And I'm making a little bit of a light blue right here. Dipping your brush in a little water so it makes things move around a little easier. And I'm just gently going around with a thin brush stroke, and you can use a smaller brush if you want to. I'm going left, right, with a little bit of, again, water on your brush is really helpful.
Megan, I think you froze.
Oh, I am here. Can you hear me? I am here, Mary. Can you hear me? If folks can hear me, post in the chat.
Yes, we can hear you now.
Oh, okay, interesting. You didn't miss anything, I promise. All right, cool. All I'm saying is using a little bit of light blue around the yellow to kind of soften, and you can create a little bit of water reflection and texture with this lighter blue as well. Maybe at the base of these land masses, you put a little bit of a lighter line to not lose sight of those. So I did a little bit over there. Even on the darker land masses, a light blue line, especially down here. Nice straight line. So to highlight the bottom of that land mass, maybe right here. A little bit of that just to highlight it. You can create little kind of stone-like shapes. This light blue acts as if it's like a little bit of reflection bouncing off. So it's really fun. Use this light blue anywhere you want to kind of create some brighter areas for your water area. And if you wanted to bring any of that onto your yellow, this isn't in the inspiration, but you can do some really thin brush strokes. I'll bring this a little closer so you can see it. You can bring your light blue onto your yellow like a little bit. Oh, you can barely see it. And maybe it's because it's wet. So with a soft hand, you can really use this lighter blue, and we'll use white after as well, but this is just a nice way to break it up. Now, one thing, if you can't see the bottom of the mountains, you can grab a small brush. I'm going to grab a smaller brush. You can add like a darker line to the bottom of the mountains for the mountains to stand out. I'm kind of losing sight of mine a little bit, but no problem. I took like a little bit of blue and black. And if you wanted to, with a nice steady hand, you can add a line to the bottom of the mountain. And I might use a little bit of blue to kind of create and blend it up a little bit. So a bluish gray to kind of blend up from the bottom.
Megan, somebody wants to know what blue color you used for the base.
It's like a cobalt blue. This is like my core blue that I used. And I mixed white with it to make it lighter. And I used black to make it darker. That makes sense. It's like a phthalo cobalt blue. Maybe it's not a phthalo. It's more of a cobalt blue color, a blue lake kind of color. It's a little more cobalt. But I'm just, you can play with adding a little bit of shading. Even use your finger to smudge and blend if you wanted to add a little shading to the bottom of these mountains. I put a little paint on and I smudge upwards. Totally up to you if you want to do this or not. I'm just giving you an idea of how to, if your blue is similar on your water to the mountains, you can kind of make them stand out a little bit more that way if you wanted to. This painting has lots of details. Do as much or as little as you wish. But take your time. It's really tricky kind of blending colors. So I think the biggest thing is find your land. If my land needs to be a little darker over here, which it might be, I can make it a little darker on the left. Or on my right side anyways. And then we'll add more like reflection and white to this after. But play with your land, play with your water. And we'll do a little bit of land depth after, land work after. We're just gonna let all this dry first. So I'm looking at my mountains. I made the bottom of the mountains. I added a little smudging to add a little bit of shading to the bottom of the mountains. So I did a little paint and I'm smudging with my finger. And you can use a little water will kind of You'll break up the paint pigment. Okay. And if you want to make the mountains, tops of the mountains a little lighter, like snow, go for it. I'll show you what that looks like just to show you. It's not in the inspiration, but if you wanted to add just on one side of the mountain, add a couple bits of white. It's any skiers out there. I know some of you are experiencing snow all over the country right now. I hope you are staying warm. I'm just doing little bits of white on the tops of some of these mountains. Okay, I'm just having fun. I didn't do anything too crazy. A little bit of paint goes a long way. If you wanted to take a little bit of a wet brush and kind of move it around, you can. Smudge it around with a wet brush. Again, paint dries. So if you paint something you don't like and you're using acrylics, don't worry about it. You can always paint over something. Just let it dry 100% and then you can go and tweak it. So that's just like a little bit of white paint just to give you a little bit of contrast on the top of those mountains if you wanted to do that. But we're going to be putting in some additional elements on our painting. So I'm going to tell you what those are. We're going to try to wrap up class in the next 20 minutes or so, just to be mindful of folks' time. So we're going to be adding stars in the sky. So I want you to be happy with the swirl detail in the sky. So we're going to take a couple minutes. I want you to be happy with the swirl detail in your sky. We'll do stars, and then we're going to add these pine trees on top. Now you can add as many or as few pine trees as you wish, totally up to you. And then we'll finish the class out by just doing a little bit of lighter detail work on some of the land in the foreground. So I'll keep an eye on the clock. I want you all to be happy with your night sky, the colors anyways, but we're going to put in white stars in just 2 minutes. So I'll keep an eye on the clock. I'm going to mix, for me, I'm going to mix a little bit of light blue. If you, again, want to take more time to play with some of these objects, you can go at your own speed. But to get through some of our final details, I want to make sure that we can fill that in. So I'm just, for me, my light blue, I just want to touch it up in some areas. Maybe it's a mid-tone blue. But I'm going to do stars on top of this. And there are a couple ways of adding stars. So I'm going to keep an eye on the clock. Maybe we do some mid-tone blue touch-ups. Again, check what brush you're using. You can use any size brush you want. Everybody's shapes in your sky is going to be a little bit different. I kind of have this like dragon thing going on. It's kind of fun. It's always fun to try different styles. Even though it's scary to some, it's still fun to try. Maybe I want to bring a little bit of my light blue down into this area. Maybe I went too high. This is a good example. Maybe I went too high with my red and I want to bring some of my blues into the reds a little bit. I can bring some of my blues in. That's no big deal. Look at this. You can cover up some of the reds and oranges if you need to. Since the red and oranges are dry now, you can easily go in. And again, if folks have to leave soon, no big deal. We are going to try to end right around 7:30 if possible. But I want to thank, again, big thanks to AARP New Hampshire for having us. You all are terrific. And Mary, thank you for sharing all your links and resources. Be sure to sign up and find that link for our next class for next month. We would love to have you back. All right. And I'm just going to come in and do a little refinement for some of these major shapes. And then in just 30 seconds or so, we're going to start with the stars in the sky. But if you want to keep painting and do stars after, that's totally fine. All right. So I'm going to slowly transition to doing stars. You need clean white paint on your plate, and you need a small brush of choice. Small round tip brush. This is, let's see here. This is a number 1 round tip brush. Anything you have will be fine. You always want to get your brush a little bit wet. And there's 2 ways of adding stars. You can add a splatter like stars, or you could add like delicate stars. So I'm grabbing white paint, putting it right on this brush, spinning it so I have the right amount of paint. It's not too goopy. And the stars on the sky are actually, they're kind of twinkle like stars. So the way I'm going to start by doing this is they're going to be, I don't want to say bigger stars, but I'm going to do a cross. So I'm going to do a plus sign. And you can do them as big or as small as you want. And then you're just going to, you can either do an X through the middle. So that's one way of putting a star in. Or you can do like a little circle to make it a little bit bigger. So I call these like twinkle stars. You can do as many or as few of these as you wish. I'm gonna do all the big stars first. So doing a plus. And then if you wanted to put a couple like little dots to make it twinkly, like nearby, you could do a couple dots to make it twinkly. But doing your stars all different sizes is a good thing. I'm gonna do all my bigger ones first, and then I'm gonna do smaller ones on top. So I'm doing a plus symbol and then like a little X with like a little dot or two around it. You can do it this any way that you want. Your stars are gonna be all over. So right on top of all of your hard work that you just did. That can be painful for some, I know. But they're gonna be right on top. And you don't, there are some in the red area and the orange area, but mainly in the dark black area. But I'm just gonna, and then you can do little dots along the way. So 1, 2, a 1. That's the additional stars. That's what makes it look a little more galactic when you start adding in your stars. If you want to do the splatter star detail, you can make a water wash on your plate, which is like 2 or 3 or 4 dollops of water. And you mix it all on your plate until you get a milky consistency. And then you use your pointer finger, your index finger, and you pull your brushes back and it spits and splatters stars on your sky. Super fun. I usually do both techniques in my classes. But I am having fun. I'm doing little stars now. I'm doing little stars and big stars. You can just do little dots. You can do big and small. You could do regular dots. You could do the pluses. You could do the X's. I like to have a balance of some of the big, some in the small. And we are going to do a big moon or a sun setting down here on the bottom too. So don't worry. We haven't forgotten about that either. This is our sunset with our sky rising. Little dots with the tip of your brush, just a tiny touch. The lighter you touch your paintbrush to the canvas, the smaller the star will be. So play with that technique. It's really fun. So I've kind of done this side with stars. I'm working my way to the other side. We're going to add trees in just a moment. If you wanted to add that white sun popping up, you can. I'll show you what that looks like as well. So it's kind of over the crest here. It's kind of like a big white sun popping up. You can have it fully, you can have it half on the mountain, half out. Isn't that cool? I kind of have it partly behind the mountain and I have it centered. And we'll do a second coat of white paint. Isn't that neat? How this has kind of all come together. If anyone is interested in sharing your artwork with me, I love to see it. Always love seeing it. I will drop my email in the chat window if you want to share that with us. We always love seeing how you did. This is a super fun inspiration. If you wanted to add a little bit of white underneath the moon on this white, on this reflection on the water, you can add a little bit of white here. Optional. Just a little bit of white. It's up to you. If you don't like it, I have a corner of paper towel will help lift up anything. You could always dip your brush or your paper towel in the corner of water and to smudge something off or clean it up. I added a little too much white, but you can see how that added some fun highlighting from that sunset. And I added some stars in my sky. If you want to add, well, we have white in our hands. If you want to add any more white reflection to your water, putting a little bit of water on your paintbrush, you can highlight like the bottom of your land a little bit, even like the top side of your land coming down. This just helps the sun hit those edges.
Megan, when you get a chance, if you could just post the inspiration again.
Oh, you got it. I'll do it right now. No problem. No problem. Let me do that for you. Can do that. And I'll also post my email as well. But here's the inspiration. And my email is megan@com. I would love to see your artwork if you want to share that with me after class. And I always love sharing it with our friends at AARP New Hampshire as well. All right, so there's the inspiration. And we'll do a couple of some finishing touches. So I added the sun coming up over the crest. I added a little bit of white reflection down here on the water. I added some stars in my sky. I'll show you how to add some of those black trees on top. I'm going to find a round tip brush. And I'm going to use a blue blackish color, just a darker color of choice. And these trees are really tall and lean. So if you like your painting and you don't want to add trees, do not, let me see here. Hang on, I was looking for the inspiration. Oh, yeah, the inspiration was posted in the chat window. It's called Bright Sky, a Bright Sky Inspiration. It's a link you have to click on. So if you don't want to do the trees, you don't have to, but I'm going to do the trees. I'm going to mix a little bit of blue and black together just to get a dark color. And the trees are optional. Again, if you're not interested, don't do them. But I always start trees by doing like long, skinny kind of foam poles to do placement for the trees as a first step. And then I add the branches after. All right, I'm just getting my black out. Okay. So I'm going to add, maybe I'll just do 3 trees to keep it really easy. The tallest tree for me, and they're all going to land on this land mass here. So I'm going to do my tallest tree first. It's going to come up almost all the way to the top, and I'm just going to do a straight line down. Now this is not a straight line, so don't follow. My hand was pretty wobbly. A straight line down. Straight down to the land. Now I'm correcting my wobbliness. So there's 1 tree. I'm going to do 3. I'm going to do another one shorter next to it here. I'm going to do another one over here. I'm going to keep it easy. You could do shorter ones if you want to. They're all varying in height. So those are going to be 3 trees. Then I'm going to do like 2 little tiny trees down here, 1 and 2 on this peninsula. See how they're shorter? All right. And then there's going to be a bunch of little trees over here on this landmass in the back. So I'm just going to show you what these look like. They're going to be a bunch of little lines. And I'm going to probably use a smaller brush, but these are nice and short. See how those are shorter? These are in the distance. They're further away. And I'll use a smaller brush to do those ones back there. And now for these trees, you're going to do, for me, I want to see the colors come through the background. So these are going to be pretty sparse, but you're going to alternate from the left to the right. And I want you to think about texture for trees. So instead of doing lines, think about bushy, dotted like texture alternating from one branch to the other. So from one side to the other, do short branches and long branches, and you're going to be skinny on the top. These are pretty long and skinny trees, pretty narrow. You can get wider as you work your way to the bottom. It's absolutely up to you. The branches could be pointed down diagonally a little bit. They could be pointed straight out horizontally. It's absolutely up to you. Find a style of a tree that you like and just do that. Trees take a lot of practice, so don't get discouraged here. Just find a style and just try it, go for it. And your trees they will evolve over time, but just embrace the tree style that happens. I'm doing kind of spaces and little small branches, small textures in between. Mine is going to get a little wider here towards the bottom, and I'm just doing little dabbing line like brush strokes. That's how I'm creating the texture of the branches. And I love that I can still see the color of this sunset coming through. That's what I wanted. That's what I was thinking of intentionally doing. So find one style of tree that you like. And you're going to rinse and repeat. So the tips of the trees are a little taller. A little more tall, a little more, the branches are a little bit more narrow. Again, alternating, adding in some like more natural, you'll get more natural like branches if you add some shorter branches in. Maybe you imagine there's a little squirrel sitting on these branches. There's a little pine cone hanging on the underside. Think nature. Nature's pretty uneven, right? You can make your center of your tree trunk thicker if you need to. Again, be playful. I'm painting with the tip of this brush only. I'm not doing smooth brush strokes. I'm just doing little dabs, kind of creating branches using the texture of my brush. And then if anything anywhere looks a little too skinny here or there, I can go back in and I can fill in. I can make it more thick in areas after if I want to. So again, rinse and repeat, and anywhere you have smaller trees, just get a smaller brush if you have one. Otherwise, you can just use the brush you're using, be as precise as possible with the tip of that brush. And that's what will give you some of that natural like texture. I kind of dab my brush and I might drag it a little bit. The ends of these branches can be a little bit more jagged. Lean back in your chair and just reflect and be mindful on your process. You can overlap the branches with the tree next to you. Absolutely. I'm going to do just some gentle texturing. I'm going to try to use the brush I'm using for these trees. I'm just going to go really gentle and soft. If anyone has any questions, do not hesitate to ask. I hope you're enjoying today's class. Again, I want to thank you for being here. For the land, if anybody has to leave soon, I'll just talk through the land. You can add a little bit of green or a little bit of blue to the top side of this land. The bottom side of the land, under half, should be black, but if you wanted to add a little bit of green or blue, you can do that. I'm going to grab a smaller brush for the tips of these trees. For me, the trees over on this far side are much smaller, so I'm using a smaller tip of a brush to get those in a minute here. If you need to make your tree a little taller, you can always do that by just adding a little bit more height on the top of the tree. Oh, Deb, I'm so glad you love these classes. Hope to see you again in the future. Be sure to send me a picture of your artwork. We always love seeing them. So this is just a really magical scene that has unfolded. We were really intent about focusing on the right colors at the right time, creating movement and magic in our skies. We played around with mountains in the distance, and we're really seeing it all come together by layering in these trees on top. Okay. I'm gonna come over here and I'm just gonna do some of these smaller pine trees over here. These are just really light and tiny. I'm just gonna do like little upside down V's. You could just do texturing. Everyone has different size brushes. So these are all gonna look so different. You could also create this into this like a little forest over here. If they're all just like touching a little, that's okay too. I'll do the abstract version of a little patch of forest. You can just kind of have them all touch a little. It's called impressionism. This looks like a little forest in the distance on this little island, right? What does this look like to you, right? All right. So I'm just gonna fill my little forest in with just some dots, and I have a little bit of blue coming through, which is great. But that's just like a little forest in the distance on the side. A couple of things I'll share with you as you work on some of your final details. I'm going to take a little bit of blue paint, and I'm going to put a little bit of blue paint on the top side of these mountains and hills, the land, just adding a little bit of lightness. So there's a little bit of blue and black. I'm just putting on the top side of the land here. You can see it's adding just a little bit of lightness to the top side of these hills. I'm going to do the same thing down here. Nothing fancy, a little bit of blue and black just to add a little bit of lightness. Let's see here. There's a little bit of green you can add too. If you wanted to add like a little bit more of a blue, you can make it a little bit more punchy. Let me see here if I have any, if I can lighten it up. Yeah, I'm just lightening this up a little bit. I want to thank you all for being here. If anyone has to leave, I certainly understand. Let's see. I'll show you to add a little green. If anyone wants to add a little bit of green to the, like a little green moss to the top side of the land, I'll show you how to do that. You can mix green with a little bit of yellow and blue. Then I'll add a little bit of white to it, have it stand out a bit. So yellow and blue will give you green. And you can tuck in a little bit of green. Ooh, that's like a lot of bit of green. If you like that, you can make it a little darker too.